Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus. This is Monday. Joining me as always is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our listeners. I've got a very clever joke this time.
Ooh.
What is brown, hairy, and wears sunglasses?
Me on a beach day?
Almost. A coconut on vacation.
Okay, I mean... I've been called a coconut before.
Oh, that's too funny.
Well, for any new listeners out there, I'll give you a quick rundown of what we do on this channel. Voyse scours Reddit for stories that we talk about and give our opinion on.
Yeah, that's actually a very quick rundown on what we do.
Boom. Well, before we get started into today's episode, we do have an announcement to make, and I will hand it over to Voyse.
Due to some complications, I'm going in for gallbladder removal surgery this week. So Damas and I are pre-recording for the next 3 weeks to allow me time to recover and recuperate, especially since I'm pregnant.
Yes, it has been a very trying last 7 months, but we still will be uploading on our upload days. Again, we're just going to be pre-recording a lot of them. And we will give you guys an update on how Voyse is doing. I'm guessing through the community tab. We don't do a whole lot of that stuff, but
We try.
we do care about you guys, and I know you guys care about Voyse. Well, now that we have all of that out of the way, what have you brewed for me today?
I have brewed for you a most delicious tea, in my opinion. It has rooibos, hibiscus, rosehip, currant, blackberry, and cranberries.
Woo!
Is it like on the edge of medicinal? I was afraid it would be.
It might, yeah, actually. You hit that on the head.
Dude, so I was making the tea and I was like, this smells a little bit too much like medicine in my opinion, but it's fruity, so maybe Damas will like it.
The fruit gets taken away. You are correct with that. The medicinal factor in there takes it down from... Because the fruit hits you first. That is in itself is like an 8. And then the medicinal comes in at the very end as a sharp note. And then it takes me down to like a 4.
I wonder if it's the cranberries, just that hit. I needed to put something a little fresh in it for you, I think.
It tastes almost like a Hispanic hot candy, right? Too much at the end. And I hate those things.
Well, while you go ahead and deal with your morning cup of brew, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for telling off my wife for taking my daughter on an unnecessary shopping spree? Wife and I, both 46, have 2 kids, Amelia, 15 female, and Logan, 12 male. It's back-to-back school season at every store around us, and school starts mid-August for them. My wife and I have an agreement that she takes Amelia shopping and I take Logan shopping. She took Amelia shopping today as it was her day off, and I planned on taking Logan over the weekend since he has soccer camp on weekdays. I was at work while they were shopping, so I didn't hear from them until I got home. My expectation is that the kids get clothes and supplies for school. We also give them each a budget of up to $300, which almost never completely gets spent. This might be excessive to some, but please refrain from commenting on it, especially since clothes are expensive these days. We only buy from higher-end stores since we want their clothes to actually last the year. We buy them clothes for the full year, and it's for both supplies and clothes. When I came home and asked my daughter what she got, she showed me the clothes she got. She just got a few outfits as well as some extra clothing so she can mix and match outfits. She also got a new backpack, jewelry, a couple makeup things, and a water bottle, as well as a stationery set. I thought that was it, but then she brought out a couple other bags. She got a pina colada candle from a candle store, a stuffed toy from Build-A-Bear, and a couple books. I asked how she got them, and she said there was a sale going on at the clothes store, meaning she got a discount on a lot of the clothes and the backpack, and the rest she got from clearance. She realized she had money left over after, so my wife allowed her to get some extras. I was angry and told her she was going to take the extra stuff back, and she got upset and said no. My wife said she had the money, so she's allowed to. I said she wasn't allowed to just buy frivolous things when we go school shopping, and that Logan would be asking me to get him extra stuff too if he saw this. She called me an a-hole and said Amelia followed the rules, so who cares if she got something extra? She doesn't need those extra things, though, and whatever was left unspent, we're supposed to take back. Am I the a-hole?
What a fun one to get started with. I know a lot of parents have budgets for their kids, especially when you're talking about starting school. So your budget and your allowances for those things are uniquely to your family and have nothing to do with me. I don't really have anything to say on that. So it's weird that they had to defend that or felt like they needed to defend the $300.
Right off the get-go, yeah.
I'm not sure who's telling you that that's bad or not, but they don't have a right to speak on that. Regardless, in my opinion, OP, you are in the wrong here. While that money may have been set aside for the school supplies and clothes, you said yourself that normally they never get anywhere close to spending over that $300 cap. On that same note, I never hear you say that once that money is spent, they can no longer do anything with it. If that's something that you want going forward, then yes, maybe implement that rule going forward. But since that already happened and that was not set in place, what you should have done was congratulated your child on thinking...
Bargain shopping?
Yeah, like she's being taught how to look for sales. I think that's amazing. Voyse definitely does sales shop. You'd be surprised how that woman can stretch $1.
And then make it last into something else.
It's impressive. Again, we don't go out of our way or push for that type of lifestyle, but as we've gotten older, we've learned how to shop smart.
Just wait a little bit.
Our son got that from Voyse as well. He zones in on deals, and we have to pull him back. Because, why wouldn't I buy 5 of those? So it is a good thing to teach your kids. It sounds like you have a bit of a control issue that's starting to sprout up that you might want to go ahead and talk to someone about. Because that will quickly start eroding some of the trust. Because if you have $10 and you tell someone that's their $10 for X, Y, and Z, and they have a little bit left over and they go buy something else with that, if they have to run that by you every single time, that's what we call walking on eggshells. Have clear indicators of what you want done with the money, so that way you don't have these type of problems happening. But you do have to understand that by you holding so tightly, you're going to force them into buying things without your knowledge, period. So it depends on what kind of lifestyle you want to live with your kids and your wife, but you might be holding on a little too tight, in my opinion here. Again, you are the a-hole. Hopefully you go get somebody to talk to about this, though.
So the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is the a-hole. And let me just say, it was only because of Redditors that it even came up that OP said that they wanted to get a cocktail set with the remaining money. Now, when I looked and tried to find that comment specifically, it was already gone. So I'm assuming the OP had deleted it. But I did see another message from our OP where he was going to get the cocktail set regardless of the money being spent. But he was going to use some of the money left over towards the cocktail set. And because of that, Redditors just instantly zoned in on this post is just controlling and selfish. Your children stayed within the budget. They got everything that they needed for the year, which was your only requirement. You're supposed to get all of your school supplies and your clothes for the year. And yes, anything that was left unspent by the end of it, then he would go ahead and collect back. However, never said that after X, Y, and Z was spent when it came to the clothes and the school supplies, that they couldn't spend the remaining money for other purposes that they would want. That technically his children, staying within those parameters, also had one of the parents' approval. So guilting their child after they did what they needed to with the requirements was a very big a-hole move there. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about leaving someone behind. Am I the a-hole for dwelling on my boyfriend briefly leaving me behind when I got out of his car? I, female 25, have been with my boyfriend, male 27, for about 7 months now. I have been invited to his birthday trip that was going to include him, his mom, and her boyfriend. Prior to the day of the trip, we had gotten into an argument because I was offended by something he said in a joking manner. I didn't take it as a joke because I found it insulting. It was a joke referencing the White Chicks movie where the character says, "Move, bitch," and he quoted it while making a joke towards me. He kept reiterating that he was playing around and would never try to insult me in any way because he respects me. He apologized for the situation because he could tell I wasn't able to move past it, and the comment upset me. This conversation had occurred on the phone 3 days prior to the trip. I was still dwelling on the joke because I tend to take things literally and can be sensitive to comments that feel like an attack on me. The day of the trip came. I packed my bag and took the bus towards his home, which is around a 1-hour ride by bus. He meets me near one of the bus stops and picks me up so we can go to his home and get in a car with his family to go on this vacation. While we're in the car together, I come back to this argument and tell him how I'm still upset and feel belittled by his comment. We argue back and forth, and then he argued that he would just take me back home because of how I was acting, and he didn't want us to continue arguing while on this weekend trip. I was heated, so I told him to drop me off by the bus stop. He insists on taking me all the way home, but also insists on wanting me to come on this trip despite the issue. While he asks again to let him drop me off, I just insist on getting off at the bus stop as I can't get past being upset. At this point, he stops at a restaurant parking lot near where I asked to be dropped off, and I get out with my bag and walk to the bus stop. After 1 or so minutes, he called me and told me he still wanted me to come on this trip and that he wanted to pick me up since he was still waiting in the parking lot. I say no and continue to argue with him, ultimately hanging up the phone on him in the process. This is when he decides to drive back home, which upsets me even more because I felt like he left me behind. I text him how I feel left behind and that he shouldn't have ever left me stranded, but he tells me he can't read my mind and that he asked to pick me up multiple times. After less than an hour passed, we texted again, and I get on the bus, but I end up getting off as I text him to come get me. He comes back to get me with his mom driving, and he apologizes and hugs me. We end up going on the trip together after that hour of mess, but I feel like I'm still dwelling on what happened. I'm really sad, and I feel like the situation blew up horribly and that I can't see him the same for leaving me there, even though I insisted on getting out to go home on my own. Am I the a-hole for being upset that he left me behind at the bus stop? Now, to add just a little bit of context, I looked through the OP's comments and confirmed that the other time that the boyfriend used the word bitch was by saying, "Yas, bitch," in the way of him mimicking the trend. And then in another one of OP's comment, they actually did confirm I went on the trip. He came back to pick me up when I decided to get off the bus at a random stop. His mom was driving, so I met with them and ended up going on the trip.
Well, there are a lot of things playing in the background of this story, specifically for our OP and what I believe she's struggling with. Because even though you were offended, and we are allowed to be hurt and offended by someone's jokes, not all humor is for everybody, but you are allowed to try the humor. And if it doesn't hit, definitely you should do what the boyfriend did at that moment. He apologized more than once, tried to make sure that it didn't happen again. I'm hoping now that he understands that that's definitely a boundary. I don't see anything wrong with what had happened in that moment. Everyone has a joke miss. He's not abusive. I didn't hear anywhere where he's done this habitually. But again, he did apologize to you and wanted to still have you come along on his family trip.
And as I've stated before, he's only even mentioned the word bitch twice.
So it isn't like we're dealing with someone who is repeatedly encroaching on your boundaries. But you still hold on to that, even through an apology and knowing how he conducts himself. That's a problem. You almost, and I would hate to say this because I don't know your background or what you've gone through, but it almost sounds like you veer into the emotional manipulation a little. And if you're not careful, that's going to develop into other bad habits for you. Because what you've done now is you've told someone to go, come back.
And then when they finally do leave because you tell them to go, then you guilt them about doing that.
I'm not sure if ROP has ever been on the receiving end of a relationship like that.
Actually, OP says that this is their first relationship.
Okay. So they're still learning how to be in a healthy relationship. How old are they?
OP's 25 and the boyfriend is 27.
Okay. So she's getting in there a little later than normally. Again, you can date when you want to. I'm not saying someone has to date by a certain age, but normally by 25, we've at least been in one, maybe two relationships, and you kind of learn how to feel those out. But it sounds like she's still learning the ropes. I would just say get into counseling, because what you're dealing with is going to be the end of a relationship. It sounds like your boyfriend cares. And I would hate for you to lose someone like that in your life, because there's a lot of people that would tell a joke, you not take it right and then them bash you for not taking a joke they said right. I've heard that way too many times now. So in my opinion, you are the a-hole. You get really close to that emotional manipulation stuff, and I detest that. Again, if you're on the receiving end of this type of treatment in a relationship, and I think maybe some of us have actually had to be in a relationship that has had that specific thing go on, it's terrifying. You don't know what to do. You're paralyzed with what it is exactly your partner wants from you because we can't read minds. That is a dangerous assumption to believe that someone is just going to understand you and what you want. You're telling him to leave. He didn't leave on the first go. He stayed around. You even said it. He stayed around for a little bit. And then at your behest, after he's asked 2 or 3 more times, he finally goes. So you are very lucky that the family is entertaining any of that. She knew a family trip was happening, yet they held everything up for over an hour to facilitate this drama that didn't need to happen. Again, it sounds like you have a lot of stuff going on in your background. I'm not trying to bash you. You're 25. You still have a lot of growing up to do. Please go get yourself into counseling. At least you're seeing the signs and you're able to talk about it and be honest. I can get behind that. But now that we are saying what's going on, let's try to fix it now.
So the consensus on Reddit is our OP is the a-hole. For a lot of Redditors, this was a really big wow moment. They felt that OP was justified in feeling upset the first time the word was used, but that her need to bring it up again after they had spoken and he had apologized and not brought it back up was really over the top. And then to add to that, to make such a big scene, to be demanded to be dropped off, but then have mixed signals that the boyfriend shouldn't have left is honestly mind-bogglingly crazy. I wouldn't know what to do in that situation. You told me to drop you off, but then you're saying that I abandoned you because I did what you requested. I think the thing for me that is the cherry on top of this really messed up cake is the fact that there were other individuals that was dragged into this drama. Like you said, Damas, you have the mother and the mother's boyfriend who just want to do this fun trip for her son's birthday. Instead, you're dealing with the dropping off this person, picking this person up. Her son's trying to convince probably the mom that was driving to drop her off at home, drop it off at this bus stop that's close to this restaurant, then the potentially go home. I can't even imagine how upset I would be as a parent to see that my child is being strung back and forth quite like this. Now, for a lot of individuals, they said, OP, you definitely need to get help because you clearly don't know what a healthy relationship is. And people can be sensitive to the things that are offensive to them. Once it's in the past, you need to learn to let it go. But constantly holding on to it just so that you can let that sort of malicious seed grow in you and how you treat whomever you're with, that's not healthy. It
becomes leverage for every conversation after that. And if someone's continuing to do that to you, you need to create distance.
I also agree. If anything, the relationship is fairly new. It's only 7 months.
Yeah.
On top of that, this is OP's first real relationship. You're going to end up losing someone that actually does care when you say that something does bother you if you keep this up.
And that's why I was trying to point it out. It seems like at least he's being understanding and he owns up to how you feel on a joke that missed. Go get the help.
Well, let's go on to our next story, and we're going to talk about something that's probably going to be a little bit of a hot debate, I think. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my ex-girlfriend after they came out as trans last week? Writing this on a throwaway account as my ex knew the name of my other account. I'm 26 male, and my ex-girlfriend is 24. We had been dating for around 4 years, with a 6-month pause. We ended up getting back together for a couple more years after my ex moved back here in Georgia. Just a couple weeks ago, I noticed they had been acting more distant from me, but not losing their affectionate behavior. I didn't get any explanation on why this was happening until later on. I thought they were going to move back to their state because something not much different happened back when they moved away the first time. It wasn't going on for this long, though. They told me a couple days before moving away. This instance, it took a week to get the answer. Last week, they came to me while I was still sleeping and rudely awoke me by shaking arms and legs. They yelled at me, "You found out, huh?" And I was confused by what they were talking about and asked what. About me being a trans man, they said. I didn't have time to react or respond to it before they slammed the bedroom door shut and I heard the car leave. They had short hair now too. I woke up at 10 a.m. abruptly and didn't see them last night because I was working night shift. Later that day, they came back and apologized for the morning behavior, and she hugged me and then kissed me. I felt very uncomfortable knowing that they identify as a guy now and not the woman I once knew. They asked to have sex with me, not even minding the fact that I'm straight, and I don't think that counts. That night had to be the most uncomfortable of my life. They gripped me from behind the whole night and massaged my shoulders, and I almost threw up in my mouth. I decided to break up with them. I told them in the afternoon after they got back from a college lecture. I asked them to leave as I was the only one paying rent every month for this place. They blocked me on all social media we had connected together. I'm not sure how to feel about this. I'm afraid I'll be called a homophobe or anything along those lines. I have plenty of gay friends and I support them. The too long don't read. My ex-girlfriend came out as a transgender man and lashed out while first telling me. They later acted strange after apologizing. We broke up the next morning. Edit. I am sorry for my bad grammar. English is my second language and I don't use it as much as my main language, so my English abilities differ. The way I badly worded this post made a lot of people think it's fake, while I am over here mentally upset at what happened. Am I the a-hole?
What a fairly serious story this is. I guess I really will just approach it like this. Two people got into a relationship where their parameters are one is a man, one is a woman. The woman in this scenario decides that she is now a man. So that has changed. While you are allowed to do that, you're allowed to do anything you want in your life. ROP is also allowed to move on from any relationship he's in, regardless of whether or not it's this type of situation or he just falls out of not love, but liking you. They're dating. You don't necessarily have to love the person you're dating. That's why you date.
Although they dated for quite a long time, if you think about it.
As I've said in the past, nobody owes anyone a relationship. And I would hope people wouldn't go out of their way to attack you and call you, I think he says he's afraid of being called a homophobe. Why? Why would you? If you're looking at this rationally, wouldn't he still be respecting who his, I guess now, boyfriend has chosen to be?
Yes, actually.
Unless I'm hearing this story wrong, he's respecting his boyfriend's identity now. End of story. So in my opinion, OP, you're definitely not the a-hole.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. For Redditors, it was really the total lack of communication from OP's partner regarding this entire subject.
Very true.
Once the foundation of that relationship changed, OP was allowed to walk away. They didn't string along the relationship for an unprecedentedly long amount of time. They came back to the issue at hand and they spoke on it literally the next day. In the end, OP sees their ex-partner as a man due to their standing now, and that doesn't align with their own orientation, which is he sees himself as a straight man.
Yes.
I think that kind of just clarifies all of it. Our OP never once put down that the reason why they broke up and he's no longer in a relationship is because he's a trans man and how dare he change. There was nothing of that sort of offensive nature. If anything, it was more of just the shock of being blindsided as they were waiting for their partner to let them know what was going on, because for them, they don't have any idea. I can't even imagine to be rudely woken up literally in the middle of sleep just to have somebody yell at me, accuse me of something, and then walk away without allowing me to actually talk my piece. I think that in itself is awfully rude. On top of that, if you have someone that's coming to you, and I don't care if you're a woman or a man, if you have someone that's coming to you regardless of being in a relationship or not, and you feel pressured into being intimate with them, that's not good.
Yes.
I just have to bring that up because our OP says that they felt uncomfortable, that this was being initiated and they felt that they had to, regardless of what they truly felt like doing, which is they didn't want to. You do not have to be intimate with someone else if you do not want to and it makes you uncomfortable. Intimacy is one of those things that should be freely given from both sides. That's the end.
You touched up on some good points there.
So now let's go on to our last story of the day, and let's see if I can bring this back because I know a lot of our stories have been a little serious. Today, I fucked up by making a promise to a 3-year-old. So many years ago, my daughter was learning to talk, and thanks to my foul mouth, She learned proper use of curse words fairly quickly. We then spent a lengthy amount of time teaching her what words were inappropriate and what to substitute them with. She would quickly get exasperated and explain in her way that the substitute words didn't have the same oomph as a curse word. And of course, all the grandparents thought it was hilarious and adorable and encouraged the use of this foul language. At some point during all this teaching, I supposedly promised my 3-year-old daughter that I'd let her cuss when she turned 15. I don't truly remember promising, but I do remember the conversations involved around the time, and I'm sure it was my exasperation that made me promise this. So on her 15th birthday, after blowing out her candles, she immediately jumped for joy, clapping her hands, and exclaimed, "This is the most fantastic fucking birthday ever." Of course, I was in shock. Her father immediately what the fucked her, and she launched into what had to have been a planned speech about this promise I made and how she's been holding on to my words for over a decade. How excited she is to finally be 15 and how she can absolutely curse now because Mom promised. In the end, we talked to her and explained how that was a promise made in frustration and exasperation. And while it is unfair to hold me to it, we could compromise. The compromise was she only uses foul language at home, absolutely never at school, and she avoids using it around extended family and her younger brothers, who consequently are also looking forward to their 15th birthdays expecting the same deal. I also know I can't stop her from using foul language around her friends, but I told her to limit it to their Discord/texting, and again, never at school, never around other kids' parents. We've taught her to use her best judgment on when the word is acceptable, and we've all toned down our cursing/foul language. She's generally a really good kid, so if cursing is the worst thing she does as a teenager, I could deal with it. The too long don't read promised my daughter at age 3 she could say curse words at age 15, and she held me to it.
Ma'am, your daughter has crazy memory.
There are some. I know that there are a few small instances when I was around 3, 4, and 5 that I remember, but words isn't one of them for me. It's all about images and feelings.
I'm always impressed with people who are able to say, yes, I can recall things from that young, because for me, if I really think about it, I don't really have a memory till, I don't know, 6 or 7. It's all just blank.
You're like, I just woke up one day and I was 6.
Yeah. So to remember that promise at 3, and for your daughter to have explained that, however she needed to, that the cuss words were just a better oomph to a conversation than the other words you wanted to substitute in.
No,
that's pretty interesting.
It's fuck, it's bitch, it's shit.
If I can believe this story, because I'm not saying it's not true, I think that would tickle me to have our kid hold on to that. Because I think even we've made sure to impress upon the fact that we can have other words in our vocabulary than cuss words with our son throughout his growing up. When is it acceptable, and how we teach them to use that in public or not to use it in public. You know, I was always told by my grandmother, and I'm certain a lot of people have heard this, when you tend to use only cuss words in your vocabulary, you sound very uneducated to a lot of people. Obviously, that's very different today. There are a lot of very educated people who cuss all the time. So take that with the grain of salt. Your vocabulary really just does depend on who raised you.
My father always told me, I know your vocabulary is bigger than just 4-letter words. I think for me, what made this story really cute is I remember the very first promise that I was given by one of my parents. And I remember when that promise wasn't kept. As a child, if you're ever truly given a promise by a parent, you should do your darndest to make sure that you actually keep your promises. First, if you make a promise, you should always work to always keep your promises, but realize that as a child who's impressionable, when you make that promise and you impart how important keeping your word is, if you don't find ways to keep your word, it will really hurt your own integrity without meaning to.
We promised each other that when we got together all those years ago, that promises were a very serious thing between us and our growing family. We've made sure to hold each other accountable. And yes, integrity is very important. It's a good foundation to build with each other. And it starts with you holding yourself to your own words. So I'm happy that the family, they were able to adjust it. Hey, look, you can cuss at home, but let's be realistic about exactly what
the parameters are.
Yeah, you're 15. Hey, look, there's certain things that we don't want your siblings hearing right now, but
extended family or school, you don't want to get in trouble in certain places, but you're free to do it in the appropriate situations.
Yeah, and as time goes on, as we all grow up, we all learn where it is appropriate to say those things. And some people don't. Some people just go ahead and do it wherever they want. And that's okay too. You're allowed to live life the way you'd like to.
Don't make promises you can't keep.
That's basically what this comes down to. And she kept it.
And that girl, she was born to swear, man.
I would have loved to have been at the birthday party to watch this 15-year-old go, hell yes. Fuck you, Mom.
I fucking love you guys.
Yeah, but I fucking love you.
Oh, it's too good.
Well, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
What a good one to end off on.
Yeah, a little bit of family funness, I think.
Especially with all the stories we already covered today.
Yes, a lot of them I think were more serious when it comes to setting proper boundaries regarding all of these situations, which is what I was kind of going for. You're allowed to have your boundaries. You're also allowed to make sure that you stay within your own boundaries. If you say something, also mean it.
Communicate, communicate, communicate. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you've seen the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we have our Damas After Dark on our Patreon on Fridays.
So cool over there.
It is. And we would also love to thank all of our Patreons for your continued support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of y'all.
Mwah!
And as always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
They were juicy, in my opinion.
Always. Also, what is everyone having for lunch today?
Ooh.
It's Monday, so normally boys can't have anything.
I can't have, yeah. It's, oh God, my diet is so restricted. It's potatoes, guys. Potatoes is the safe thing.
Oh, mashed potatoes and mashed potatoes.
Yeah, because I can't have the molasses.
Nope.
So let me live through you, listeners. Tell me your delicious food. But when I get better, I want Frito-Lays and sour cream.
We bought you some ube cookies that are just waiting there.
They have coconut cream on top, but I can't touch it because the coconut has too much fat.
The struggle is real over here. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
I can't wait to touch those cookies.